Welcome to Community Unitarian Universalist Church of Plano Online. My name is Bill Daphne, and I'll be your worship associate this morning. Our speaker today is Pastor Chris Cervantes on his topic of a faithful response to the racial struggle in America.
Theologian Jürgen Moltmann tells us, peace with God means conflict with the world, for the goad of the promised future stabs into the flesh of every unfulfilled present. The conflict in the world today, evidence of our unfulfilled present, is that goad. Every tear gas canister thrown, every fleeing protester, every burning building, every line of armor-clad police reminds us that there is no peace without justice, no promise of a better future without the pain of rebirth into a new one. The world is on fire. Are we? Go ahead.
May the light we now kindle inspire us to use our power to heal and not harm, to help and not hinder, to bless and not curse, to serve you, Spirit of life, freedom, and justice. This beloved community is bound together not by a creed, but a promise we make to each other. Each time we gather, we recite the covenant again to remember and renew this bond. Please join with me now in the words of our congregational covenant. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth and freedom, and to help one another.
For our pastoral prayer today, I offer up this prayer by Megan Foley and Teresa Soto, two Unitarian Universalist women who kick butt and write beautifully. Unitarian Universalist minister Reverend Teresa Soto writes, all of us need all of us to make it. So I want you to get used to those words and make them your prayer. All of us need all of us to make it. Let's say it one more time. Say it with me at home or wherever you might be. All of us need all of us to make it. This is why Unitarian Universalists support the Black Lives Matter movement. Let's take a moment in this time of upheaval, uprising, outrage, grief, and perhaps new movement. Let's take a moment and center that struggle in our thoughts. Say it with me, loud or soft, in your head or heart, or simply hear it. All of us need all of us to make it. In a world where some of us are targeted for struggle and brutality, where others of us benefit and flourish, we pray. All of us need all of us to make it. In a world where powerful people of ill will and indifference make us fearful for our safety and our futures, we pray. All of us need all of us to make it. In the excruciating space that lives between seeing and naming, hearing and changing, we pray. All of us need all of us to make it. Make a picture in your mind of someone you aren't very happy with right now. Look at their face in your mind and pray. All of us need all of us to make it. Now that you've done that hard thing, close your eyes and imagine the circles and the weavings and the entanglements of your life and the lives of your loved ones and the lives that they touch onward and outward, an ever-widening web of interdependence and care We know that parts of this web are broken. Parts of our family are insecure and living in fear. We know. And we know. Say it with me one more time. All of us need all of us to make it. Amen.
I am open and I am willing, for to be hopeless would seem so strange. It dishonors those who go before us, so lift me up to the light of change. There is a hurting in my family, and there is sorrow in my town. There is a panic all across the nation, and there is wailing the whole world round. But I am open and I am willing, for to be hopeless would seem so strange. It dishonors those who go before us, so lift me up to the light of change. May the children see more clearly, and may the elders be more wise. May the winds of change caress us, even though they burn our eyes. But I am open and I am willing, for to be hopeless would seem so strange. It dishonors those who go before us, so lift me up to the light of change. Give me a mighty yoke to hold my confusion, and give me a desert to hold my fears. Give me a sunset to hold my wonder, and give me an ocean to hold my tears. But I am open and I am willing, for to be hopeless would seem so strange. It dishonors those who go before us, so lift me up to the light of
Oh my God, is what this clergy friend said. Please, please, someone reassure me that I am not entirely incompetent to do this work. Please help me trust that the words will come when they need to, because they're not coming now. She was talking to lots of us, but it was an intimate cry too. It must have been because the whole bunch of us, it seemed, felt it right in the gut. We reassured her. It was easy. She's a gifted minister in person and far from incompetent. She is a compassionate, smart leader, as most of us are trying to be. But like my doubting colleague online, I don't know if the words that I have today will be the right ones, or if the right words even exist when it comes to the complex, heart-aching, nation-breaking subject of Black and brown lives in America, especially from this middle-aged white woman, especially when I am wrestling with my own anger and grief just as you are. Beloved community members of color, I'm grateful for your presence, and I appreciate your patience with, well, me, yet another well-intentioned white liberal talking for too long, perhaps. My message today is focused on ways to be better at anti-racism, which I'm thinking most of you already know more about than I will ever learn. So, white folks, though? White folks, I'm still learning. We're still learning. But I've come to a conclusion that it is time. It is past time. We are overdue. It's time to go get our people. White supremacy isn't a Black burden. It's a white sin. As white people, it's our job to repent and repair the rift. Many of us in this community have worked in and on race relations issues for decades, but what we were doing wasn't working. Probably because a lot of it has always been about telling Black people what they should do, rather than actually considering that white people are the problem. Not entirely, but let's face it, it's a pattern. So that's why I'm talking primarily about anti-racism things that white people need to know, because I'm pretty sure that if you're a person of color, you already know this, and if I'm wrong, I really hope that you will correct me if our relationship is that. Otherwise, I'm going to count on my white brothers and sisters to come and call me to task. So thank you for doing that. Either way. First of all, my melanin-challenged comrades, it is beyond time for us, and I hear the irony of this fully, to be quiet. Let me be specific. When we are in mixed race groups, particularly at anti-racism events, we need to shut up. Don't grab that mic. Don't share that story. Don't, for the love of God, please don't start that chant. Other things that we don't need to tell everyone, and I do mean we. I am guilty of literally everything on this list at some point or other in my life, some of them very recently. We don't need to tell everyone our personal I saw the light story. We don't need to tell our family history for the good or bad. We don't need to tell people how long we've been doing that civil rights work. Maybe we shouldn't be bragging about it, seeing how well we've done. We don't need to explain how many Black friends we have, or the minority school we attended, or the poor neighborhood we lived in, or the Black guy or girl that we dated or even married, or the Black kids we even adopted, because that doesn't make us Black. It doesn't make us Latino or Latina or Latinx. It does not give us entree into a group of people whose skin color separates them in the eyes of those in power. We don't need to explain any of that. Do you know why? It's because Black folks know every which way that white people feel about racism. They know when we're sorry about racism. They know when we're ignorant. I suspect they know real well when we're not sorry about racism. There is no flavor of white people emotions that people of color don't understand, probably better than we do, because they don't have the cushion of privilege that we get to ride around on. So please, white folks, please, please stop talking where there are Black and brown people who are grieving and in pain. I know that we are grieving and in pain too, and that is appropriate, and frankly, it's right, considering the magnitude of atrocity, the number of people who have been killed and maimed and treated as less than human, and the number of years that has been spread over. What's not appropriate is wanting people of color to absolve us of complicity, even as they mourn yet another and another state-sponsored and state-sanctioned murder. We're white. I'm white. We're complicit. I am complicit. Because that murderous state was created by and for us. White people, we benefit from the current system, the current racist system. When we grab the mic at rallies and when we justify ourselves in mixed race groups, both on and offline, and when we go looking for a brown or black acquaintance or stranger to make us feel better, we're doing violence to our neighbors of color. We're forcing them to take on the emotional labor of our guilt and shame and self-justification, in addition to the ongoing grief of a culture that has been brutalized for centuries and the deep personal grief of this moment that we are living in right now. And they may not want that labor, okay? But we live in a world where it's dangerous for Black folks to speak out when white people are literally preying upon them, much less when we're being self-centered and annoying. And I have to say, I confess here, I am super sensitive to this at the moment because I've been to 2 rallies in 2 weeks, and I've seen these behaviors laid bare by good people who I want to do better. And so, white people, we gotta shut up. Our voices are unneeded in mixed race spaces on this topic. It's our place to listen. But we white people, we are grieving too. And we're learning. And we need to keep doing that desperately. I know I do. And so where can we do that? Well, good news. The world is made for white people like us. And the people that we know and hang out with are almost always white too. We can have these conversations at home, at restaurants, online, on our own Facebook and Insta pages, with our own Twitter accounts. One of the most valuable Facebook groups that I belong to is for white women and non-binary UU clergy, that's a mouthful to say, to learn and grow and support one another and hold one another accountable as we work on race and racial justice issues, and as we become better anti-racists. And some of my most valuable friendships are with other white folks doing anti-racism work, who also keep me accountable. And I do the same for them. Kind of like what I'm hoping for today. In just a few seconds, we will come to the point where I've been talking for 8 minutes and 46 seconds. In fact, right? No, we're there. And I bring this to your attention because it's important. Because what we're talking about today is desperately important to the lives of everyone in this nation and everyone on this planet. We're a covenantal faith movement. We're bound to each other by the law of love, the living prayer of service, and the most fundamental element of ethical life, the charge to help one another. In this moment, helping one another means holding one another accountable. It goes both ways, and I hope that you will find I am as good as my word when I say I welcome being accountable to you, even as I stir up my own courage to hold us accountable to anti-racism as a community. And so, don't get me wrong, we're all still Unitarian Universalists, and what with freedom of the pulpit and freedom of the pew, we may not agree on everything. But we certainly don't have to agree on the one true way of being anti-racist in order to get a lot of work done. And there are always new things to learn, and there will never be a time when we white folks get to say, done. Not us. Not in our lifetimes and not in our children's lifetimes. Probably not in their children, but dare to dream. One of the most common things that I hear us white people say, and it's a thing I've thought and felt, is, but I didn't do anything racist. Then there's a list of ways we aren't racist. We mentioned that before when we talked about our, justifications. And then we conclude, so am I supposed to feel guilty for the past? Am I supposed to live my life in shame? No. I used to say no. Let's just use our privilege to continue doing better, to advocate for anti-racism causes. And that may still be the right answer. But I'll tell you what, for myself, I don't think I can say that anymore. I think that we white people should feel guilty, and I think we should feel ashamed. If we feel guilty and angry and sad and confused and helpless and frankly ashamed about being a white American, I think that's okay. I feel guilty and ashamed about being a white American a lot of the time, because no matter my intentions and no matter my actions even, I am complicit. I'm a beneficiary of the system. It's not overpowering to feel this. As a friend of mine says, if you haven't been called a race traitor before breakfast, are you really even trying? So this feeling of guilt and shame is real. It's not overpowering often. I don't spend time sitting and rocking with tears running down my face, much. But mostly what it means for me is that I feel humble when it comes to the subject of race and anti-racist work. I'm not a humble person by nature, but I am considering it part of my spiritual growth to embrace humility, a posture of learning, a willingness to be corrected. Now, let's be real. This is not necessarily true with other white people. No, I will happily set myself up as a consultant to white people on how to be less racist. And you should do that too. We'll get to that. But I am ashamed to be part of the oppressing class. I am ashamed that other white people can and do assume that I'm a racist just like them. I'm embarrassed to be a citizen of a nation which has failed so on the most basic principles of decency, compassion, and equity. I'm guilty of accepting the benefits of my white skin, whether I realized it or not. I'm guilty, personally I am guilty, of saying harmful things to people of color, some as close as family or closer. And I am guilty of having responded in oblivious and pain-causing fashion to their experiences. For decades, we modern progressive churches have focused on happiness and comfort in act, if not in word. For all our much vaunted liberalism, Unitarian Universalists, just like most white Americans, have very little real tolerance for discomfort, the kind of intense, distressing discomfort that comes from confession and repentance. And if those words are heavy, these are too. George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, Jordan Edwards, Michael Brown, Sandra Bland, Tamir Rice, Philando Castile, Freddie Gray, Alton Sterling, Walter Scott, Eric Garner, Atatiana Jefferson, Terrence Crutcher. That's 15 names. That's 15 of the dozens, the hundreds who have been abused by those in power. If we don't confess now, if we don't repent now to one another, and then get out and listen and do the work that we are called to do, not by some nebulous creator or ethic, but by our black and brown brothers and sisters and siblings They are telling us what to do. So I think it's just useful to go ahead and be repentant and think about it and adopt that posture of humility as we move forward. There are things that we can do. I direct you specifically to the NAACP list of requests/demands for police forces and communities all over America. I will post that at the end of the service. And I also just want to tell you that just pay attention, open your heart, open your eyes and your minds. If you do not have any folks on your friends lists who are African American or Hispanic or basically anything other than white, then begin reading Black news, begin following Black celebrities, because that's a place those folks have appointed themselves, and when they speak out publicly, they have chosen to do so. And so they're basically offering themselves up as educators in some cases and in specific contexts and times. There's so much that we can do, and it's so hard to know what to do next. And so I just really would say, let's do that one thing first, which is to be quiet and listen. And do the second thing, which is that in our daily practice, we hold one another accountable, and we do better by the whole world and one another. We have nothing to gain but a better world. That would be okay. Amen, and go in peace.
This is what we do with our faith. Live in this world knowing that we will lose each other, loving despite the hard bargain that it demands of us, doing what we can so that truth may be safely lived, measuring our faith by the difference we have made, building up faith communities to continue after we are gone. As members and friends of this church, we have pledged to share our resources to operate the missions of our church, including online worship in these uncertain times. We appreciate your gifts, whether by bank transfer, checks sent by mail, or online. Just go to the communityuuchurch.org and click on the blue Donate Now button. Your gifts are most greatly received.
Three, two, one.
As our worship time together draws to a close, it is time now to extinguish our chalice. Please speak the words with me. We extinguish the flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
For our benediction today, I stick with our theme of us white folks calling us white folks to account, and I share the words of Robin DiAngelo, author of White Fragility, Why It's So Hard for White People to Talk About Racism. She writes, "The key is what we do with our discomfort. We can use it as a door out. We can blame the messenger and disregard the message. Or we can use it as a door in by asking, why does this unsettle me? What would it mean for me if this is true? What would it mean for the whole world if we were able to accept that this is true and transform ourselves and the safety and health of everyone we love? What if? Go in peace and have a beautiful, beautiful Sunday."
Thank you for watching our service today. Be sure to join us next week for Pastor Chris talking about Bridge to Nowhere Known. Please click subscribe to make sure you don't miss any of our Sunday services, To find more about Community Unitarian Universalist Church, visit us online at communityuuchurch.org. There you can find out who we are, how we are living up to our mission even now. Although we are apart, we are together in community. See you next week.
Give us a smile, Bill. Perfect. That was beautiful. I don't think we have to do anything else.
No,
Just want to.